The stone door behind Sarah and Ethan slammed shut with a loud thud, the echo reverberating off the cold stone walls of the pyramid. The two stood frozen, the faint beams of their flashlights wavering in the oppressive darkness. The exit was sealed shut, leaving no way back. Sarah swallowed hard, trying to keep her voice steady. "We can't go back," she said, her eyes flicking toward the sealed door. Ethan silently nodded, still staring at the door. They had no choice now but to move forward. There was no time to panic. The map had led them here, and there was still more ahead. Together, they began to move forward, the beams from their flashlights bobbing in the damp, narrow passage. Their footsteps echoed loudly on the cold stone floor, as if time itself was bouncing back at them. The walls were covered in hieroglyphics depicting gods, pharaohs, and strange symbols. Sarah ran her fingers along the ancient carvings, feeling the weight of history pressing in on her. But something about this place felt off, like they weren't alone. The air around them grew thicker, and Sarah could feel the atmosphere changing. It wasn't just the physical darkness. Something deeper was stirring in the pyramid. Ethan's flashlight flickered for a moment, causing shadows to dance around them ominously. Then a whisper. It started faintly, almost imperceptible, a soft, distant sound, as if the very stones of the pyramid were murmuring. Sarah froze, her hand trembling as the flashlight cast a weak beam across the hallway. "Did you hear that?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Ethan remained silent for a moment, his face growing tense as he too heard the whispers, growing louder, swirling around them like a distant chant from an ancient past. Their footsteps quickened as the unease deepened. Something was terribly wrong. The air became heavier with every step, and the whispers intensified, filling the space with unintelligible voices. Each step felt like it stretched endlessly, the narrow hallway winding on with no clear end. Suddenly, the ground beneath them rumbled. Ethan stumbled forward, struggling to keep his balance. Sarah grabbed his arm just in time, but before they could react, the stone floor beneath them gave way. They slid down a steep, narrow slope, dust and debris swirling around them as they plunged into the darkness below. With a hard thud, they landed in a large chamber. The sound of their bodies hitting the ground echoed loudly in the vast, empty space. Sarah gasped for air, her vision blurry from the sudden fall. She felt the cold, hard stone beneath her as she struggled to sit up, her body aching. "Ethan," she called softly, her voice trembling. "I'm here," Ethan replied, his voice strained as he pushed himself up, glancing around the strange room they had fallen into. The chamber was enormous, with high ceilings, and the walls were covered in glowing hieroglyphics. In the center of the room stood a massive stone sarcophagus, ancient and weathered. The air was thick with dust, as if no one had set foot here in thousands of years. "Where are we?" Sarah whispered, her eyes wide with confusion. Ethan retrieved his flashlight, casting its beam around the room. A burial chamber. This must be where a pharaoh was laid to rest. They cautiously approached the sarcophagus, its surface etched with symbols and inscriptions that felt more ominous than the others they had seen. Sarah tried to decipher some of the hieroglyphics, but the dim light from their flashlights made it difficult to read clearly. And then there was movement. The room seemed to shift slightly, and from the far wall, a section of stones slowly slid open, revealing another dark passage. The whispers grew louder, no longer faint and distant. Sarah and Ethan exchanged a glance, a mix of fear and curiosity in their eyes. "We have to keep going," Sarah said quietly, her voice filled with determination, though tinged with fear. Ethan nodded. There was no turning back. They stepped into the new passage, their footsteps echoing in the cold, dark corridor. The air grew even heavier, and now it wasn't just the whispers other sounds joined in, strange murmurs that seemed to come from the shadows themselves. Ethan's flashlight flickered again, and for a brief moment, the light went out. In that split second, Sarah thought she saw something, a shadow moving at the edge of her vision. She spun around, but nothing was there. Only darkness. What was that? She whispered, her voice shaky. But before she could finish her sentence, they saw it. In the center of the room ahead, on an ancient stone pedestal, lay a golden Ankh, glowing faintly in the darkness. Its light shimmered, almost hypnotizing. Sarah felt an irresistible pull toward it, as though it was beckoning them closer. "We shouldn't touch it," Ethan muttered, his eyes fixed on the glowing object. "Something's not right." Before they could react, the room trembled violently. The whispers turned into a deafening roar, as if the entire pyramid was coming alive. The stone walls began to close in, and the ground beneath their feet cracked, threatening to swallow them whole. "We need to get out of here," Ethan yelled, grabbing Sarah's arm and pulling her toward the only exit. They ran, their breaths coming in ragged gasps as the pyramid seemed to collapse around them. The Ankh's light flickered wildly behind them, and the room's walls groaned as they moved closer, ready to crush them. Just as the walls nearly closed in completely, they stumbled into a narrow corridor, barely escaping the collapsing chamber. The roaring stopped, and the silence that followed was almost unbearable. They had escaped the nightmare for now, but the unease lingered, clinging to them like the dust in the air. Something far more sinister awaited deeper within the pyramid, and they both knew this was only the beginning.